The truth about prison nights they don't want you to see. Subscribe now for more authentic crime tales. Remember to like, share, and engage with us in the comments below. The fluorescent lights buzzed ominously as they flickered, illuminating the grimy walls of the solitary confinement unit. Nighttime had fallen inside the walls of a maximum security prison, but the true darkness lay in the hearts of its inhabitants. Just before midnight, a sudden commotion erupted in the common area as two inmates clashed, fists flying in a blur of anger and desperation. It was a fight for survival, reflected not just in their rage, but in the haunting eyes of those who had witnessed the brutality of prison life. The guards rushed in, their shouts piercing the air. But what unfolded next was even more shocking. As they broke up the altercation, they discovered a hidden stash of contraband that would expose a wide network of corruption within the prison administration itself. This revelation was just the tip of the iceberg, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats, wondering how deep the rabbit hole would go. To comprehend the chaos of that night, we must first understand how the prison operates. This facility housed over 1,000 inmates, each with their own stories of despair and survival. The men here were not just criminals. They were fathers, brothers, and sons, trapped in a rigid system that often failed to rehabilitate. The daily routine in this prison was meticulously controlled. Lights on at 6 a.m., meals served at specific times, and mandated activities ranging from work assignments to group therapy sessions. Yet beneath this facade of order lay simmering tensions. Food shortages were common, with inmates frequently complaining about the dreadful quality of meals served, often cold slop lacking nutritional value. As the days wore on, signs of unrest became increasingly evident. Inmates whispered in the corners, exchanging jarring truths about their experiences and the neglect they faced. Staff shortages and inadequate medical care compounded these issues, creating a powder keg of discontent ready to explode. At the end of this chapter, a troubling message from an unknown source appeared, hinting at more widespread corruption affecting not just inmates, but staff as well. Whispers of a smuggling ring began to surface, signaling a much bigger problem looming just beneath the surface of the prison's operations. As night descended, the sound of metal doors slamming shut echoed through the corridors, signaling lockdown. Inmates were confined to their cells, left to ponder their choices in isolation. This was the time for secrets to surface and the harshness of prison life to settle in. James, an inmate with a past as a community leader before incarceration, spoke candidly about his perception of the nightly routine. "When the lights go out," he said, "the real fight begins. It's not just about surviving another day, it's about the darkness that creeps in on your soul." As inmates lay on their bunks, that darkness manifested in various forms. Some turned to violence, while others engaged in whispered conversations that revealed hidden truths. One evening, a particularly haunting confession rippled through the cells as an inmate detailed a plan to escape, exposing vulnerabilities within the prison's security systems. This revelation sent shockwaves across the unit, igniting discussions about rebellion and potential alliances. But just as hope flickered, a sound shattered the night. Guards stormed the housing unit, responding to a rumor of a potential escape, throwing the inmates into complete turmoil. The escalation illustrated how fragile the line between despair and rebellion could be within these walls. As the situation escalated, fear mingled with rising tensions. Guards called for an emergency lockdown, and inmates braced for conflict. During these moments of turmoil, the prison's harsh reality became glaringly apparent, not only to the men behind bars, but to those tasked with keeping order. In the kitchen, a worker named Kevin, who had been with the facility for years, witnessed firsthand the corruption that festered behind the scenes. "We were told to serve less food and hide things. I saw guards come in, taking what we were supposed to feed the inmates. They didn't care," Kevin revealed in a later interview. His testimony opened a door to uncovering deeper corruption, a systemic issue that extended beyond just contraband. The feeding of inmates had become a means of profit for certain guards willing to turn a blind eye. This revelation fueled the burgeoning resentment among the prison population and fed the flames of an impending rebellion. As tensions heightened, word spread that a synchrony of inmates planned to rise against the administration. In the shadows of their cells, alliances began to form, and the quiet planning of resistance ignited a sense of camaraderie among the men. The chapter closed with the unmistakable feeling that something extraordinary was about to unfold. Nighttime in prison often became a breeding ground for conspiracy and planning. As the lights dimmed, inmates gathered in their cells, their voices hushed but full of resolve. Meetings were clandestine, aimed at coordinating their efforts to halt the mistreatment they faced daily. James took a lead role, channeling the passion that had once inspired his community. Through careful whispers, they strategized ways to expose the corruption and mistreatment they had endured for too long. The plan involved gathering evidence. Hidden notes and testimonies had already started circulating among the inmates. They would use their voices to demand change, but first they needed to formulate a plan that encapsulated their collective strength. However, every resistance has its risks. One fateful night, during a routine cell inspection, a guard uncovered a cache of notes that outlined their plans. Panic spread among the inmates as they realized that their efforts had not gone unnoticed. Immediate retaliation was inescapable. The stakes escalated as the chapters of prison life intertwined with a narrative of survival. Just as fear threatened to extinguish their hope, a suspenseful twist emerged. Anonymous letters began flowing into the hands of a local newspaper, detailing the inmates' struggles and the corruption within. As the letters were published, the prison found itself under scrutiny from advocacy groups and local media. The attention brought a new level of tension. Guards were on high alert, determined to silence dissent among the inmates. The energy shifted drastically as the threat of external oversight loomed large. Inside the prison, whispers of impending investigations fueled unrest. Some inmates feared retaliation from guards, while others felt emboldened by the support from the outside world. The guards, now wary of potential backlash, tightened their control, enacting harsher measures during lockdowns and meal times. During one of these intense lockdowns, a critical moment unfolded. A disturbance erupted when inmates protested against being served stale food. One inmate, in a moment of desperation, climbed to the top of the cafeteria table, rallying cries echoing against the walls. His voice resonated with power, bringing others to their feet. "We deserve better," he shouted, as courage spread through the crowd. The chapter concluded with a raid by guards, determined to quash the burgeoning revolt before it could gain momentum. The sense of hope was palpable, but the fragile unity among inmates faced a significant test as chaos erupted once again, leading to emergency lockdown procedures. The prison was now entrenched in conflict, with guards and inmates on opposing sides, neither willing to back down. After the raid, calm was temporarily restored, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered like a pot ready to boil over. Inmates now faced more severe restrictions, pulling them further into isolation. James, ever the strategist, knew they needed to communicate effectively without being overheard. They began writing clandestine notes that circulated among trusted allies, detailing their perspectives and plans for building unity. Each message was imbued with urgency, serving not only as a call to arms, but also a reflection of the psychological toll of their circumstances. During one secretive meeting, an old-timer named Frank shared his story, a chilling account of how he survived solitary confinement for months. He spoke of the darkness that surrounded him and how it tested his resolve. "You lose track of time, but you never lose hope," he said, his voice steady and resonant. As the inmates absorbed Frank's wisdom, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. But danger was ever present. They were at risk of being discovered. Just as they felt themselves gaining strength, a series of sudden cell searches took place. Guards uncovered more hidden notes, igniting fears of imminent punishment. In the wake of increased tensions, the prison atmosphere grew thick with uncertainty. The incident involving the confiscation of the inmates' notes sparked retaliatory measures by the guards, leading to a crackdown on any semblance of unity or dissent. Lockdowns became more aggressive, and any gathering of inmates was met with force. In the mess hall, mealtimes turned chaotic as inmates braced for the worst with each passing days. One evening, They were served particularly unappetizing food, barely fit for consumption. This led to a confrontation. An inmate bravely stood up against the guards, demanding to speak directly to the administration about the unacceptable treatment they faced. As voices rose in support, the guards retaliated with tear gas, and chaos erupted. In that moment, every inmate realized the gravity of their situation. Their predicament was dire, and they stood at a critical point of no return. What unfolded next was both surprising and promising. Amidst the chaos, video footage captured their brave stand, drawing attention from outside advocacy groups once again. The chapter closed with a sense of impending change, but it was overshadowed by fear of severe crackdown. Would the voices of the inmates finally be heard, or would the prison administration resort to harsher measures? As reports of the chaos circulated outside the prison walls, politicians and advocates began to take notice, leading to potential investigations into the facility. Inside, however, the atmosphere was fraught with tension as inmates prepared for whatever repercussions awaited them. Amidst this brewing storm, James emerged as a key figure, spearheading discussions about their next steps. He reminded everyone that their fight was not just for individual survival, but for collective justice. The idea of a large-scale protest grew, an organized stand against what they perceived as systematic neglect. Late at night, as residents of the prison contemplated the risks involved, the stakes rose even higher when a trusted inmate was suddenly missing. Rumors spread quickly, igniting fears of betrayal or worse, retaliation from guards who had been tipped off about their plans for a unified protest. As the chapter closed, a chilling message was discovered in the halls. It warned of a trap set to disband their efforts before they could take action. Inmates faced a grave choice: move forward with their plans and risk everything, or hold back and potentially lose their chance for change forever. The day of the planned protest arrived, and the prison was charged with anticipation and anxiety. Inmates gathered in small clusters, voicing their solidarity while glancing nervously at the guards who patrolled their movements with increased scrutiny. James took a deep breath and steadied himself. This was it, the moment they had all been waiting for. When the call went out, the yard erupted with cries for justice and reform. The energy shifted dramatically, echoing within the brick walls that had held their voices captive for far too long. But just as the momentum built, guards rushed in to quash the uprising, leading to chaotic clashes between inmates and law enforcement. The vision of unity melted into frustration and fear as the sound of shouting and chaos filled the air. But in that turmoil lay an undeniable truth. Their storm of resistance had become impossible to ignore. As the dust settled, external observers began to arrive, drawn by reports of disruption inside the prison. Advocacy groups and media outlets were ready to hold everyone accountable. The chapter, and the story, concluded with a powerful cliffhanger. Would this be the turning point that sparked real change, or would the prison system retaliate and bury their voices once more? In the end, it remained clear that life within those walls would never be the same again. The truth about prison nights, the struggles, the fear, and the unyielding spirit of those who refused to be silenced, had finally come into the light.